We have some major news right now. Pete Hegseth could be on his way out very soon. Republicans on Capitol Hill are very, very concerned about Pete Hegseth's tenure as Secretary of Defense. And it really seems like the walls are closing in right now, whether it's the boat strikes in the Southern Caribbean and the possible war crimes or SignalGate. Not good news for Hegseth. And with the expected cabinet reshuffling happening as soon as January, Hegseth could be the first cabinet member on the way out. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to spread the word. Republican senators are growing increasingly exasperated with the proliferation of high-profile controversies at the Pentagon. Many Republican senators have been careful not to provoke Trump's anger by publicly criticizing Hegseth, whom Trump went to bat for during difficult Senate confirmation proceedings, but they're not vouching for him. Senator Tom Tillis says that Pete Hegseth has done things that I completely agree with, but also done things that are confusing to me. Another Senator, Joni Ernst, said that Hegseth's tenure at the top of the Pentagon has been, quote, bumpy. In addition, Rand Paul says, I think Hegseth should testify under oath about the orders that were given, and I think the video of the distressed, shipwrecked, or incapacitated people on those boats being bombed, that video should be shown to every American. So where we're at right now is Hegseth could be on the way out. And I spoke to Senator Mark Warner, a senior Democrat who is running for re-election right now, about what he saw on the video, how he thinks it's extremely disturbing, how he thinks Hegseth could be on the way out. Let's just jump right into it right now. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Super excited this morning to be joined by Senator Mark Warner from Virginia. Now, Senator, I want to talk about a lot of things, including your re-election run, but I want to get started with the news that's really taken Washington by storm, and that is these boat strikes in the Southern Caribbean. You spoke with Admiral Mitch Bradley over the past 24 hours. Do you feel assuaged at all about what's happening in the Southern Caribbean after speaking with the Admiral?
Well, listen, I think the Admiral has to come testify, not just before me, but before our committee or the Armed Services Committee. I also got to tell you, this video is very, very disturbing. I think the American people need to see it, and I think they will draw some pretty serious conclusions. You know, what we're talking about here is, first of all, the underlying policy of designating, these drug cartels as kind of terrorist organizations. I think it's a really shaky legal ground. Mm-hmm. And then the question is, people will see the guys on the capsized boat and whether that was warranted or not. And I want to try to get all the facts, because if it's not warranted, we're talking about something that would be considered a war crime. And that has so much more ramifications than just Admiral Bradley in terms of how America is viewed, particularly since Lord knows our ability to do interventions in Central America, the Caribbean, and South America has been pretty crappy. So this is, I'm trying not to fully rush to judgment, but boy, if people see this video, they're going to be, just disturbed would be an understatement. And, and it also just kind of quickly raises the issue again of Hegseth. What a guy that is so far beyond his ability. I mean, we saw the Inspector General come out and say his use of signal phones was totally inappropriate. Troops in harm's way back in the spring, where our jets were taking on Yemen. We've seen him fire a bunch of military leaders for political reasons. We've seen him bring in all the military leadership to get a lecture from him. And then Hegseth, who bragged about all this activity on this strike, mm-hmm. and claims that he came up with some of the agenda, now trying to, run for the hills. This is not a guy that, Hegseth is not a buck stops here kind of guy. So a serious subject. And I got a lot of questions still to get answered.
Now, you mentioned that it's a very disturbing video and that the American people should see it. There was recent reporting overnight from CNN that suggested that the two individuals on the boat didn't have the capability to even have a phone or some type of radio to call back. The White House and the Secretary of Defense have been saying that this is legal because theoretically they still posed a threat. They could have called for aid or whatever. Is that true based on what you understand?
I could not imagine what I saw yesterday, that these were, combatants that could get back in any kind of fight. But the whole underlying basis that, with terrorists, you had to spot the idea that they might have had, weapons or bombs, the equating of that to if they have drugs, that's the same indication. And there is a lot then of legal technical definitions that if they were in the water, They're shipwrecked survivors, and rules of war said you can't pick them up or you can't take them out. And frankly, in subsequent strikes, they did capture and return to their home countries. Again, the idea that this is why I think rather than a bunch of politicians weighing in secondhand, the position the administration is taking is when they need to see, Congress needs to see, and the American people need to see, it's going to be awful hard to make, I think, a case that these were not shipwrecked.
Now, a lot of people say, you even mentioned the word war crime earlier in this interview, and a lot of people say war crime. And I respond, and I'm like, well, are we at war? What do you say to that?
What I'd say is they have put together a legal document that they decided in late July and then didn't publish the document until 3 days after the strike on September 5th. And even then, they didn't share it with anybody. So there's questions like, was the document changed after the September 2nd strike? And then Congress didn't even get a chance to see it until November. That's wild. So, is there an argument? Does it pass? There is an argument that comparing, narco-terrorists to they're bad guys, and they have clearly, they have an effort not based on ideology, but they want to, they have wreaked havoc on Americans and frankly the world. But they'll jump from that to suddenly saying we're going to put them in the same boat with ISIS and Al Qaeda and other groups, or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. I think that's a bridge. It's going to be a bridge too far for most Americans. And frankly, one of the things that I think you're starting to see, finally, some of the Republicans start to grow a little bit of a backbone, that it's probably a little bit of a bridge too far even for some of the Republicans.
Now, Senator, I do want to pivot and talk about an announcement you made this week, which is that you're running for re-election in Virginia. A lot of folks in Virginia are obviously excited to hear that. Now, a question I get often that people want to know from folks running on the left is, well, 2026 could be a referendum on Trump and what we're seeing in the White House, but also Democrats need to have their own message, whether it's affordability or anything else. And so my question to you is, are you running a campaign against Trump, or are you running for something for Virginians?
I think there's a lot of reasons, obviously, that Trump is a huge threat to our democracy, and you got to make that case. But I want a Democratic Party that's going to be pro-growth, pro-innovation, pro-technology, frankly realizes we got to be more on the opportunity side than just the regulatory side. And so I very much want to make the case that, one, I'll match my record of getting shit done with anybody in the Senate in terms of how that's benefited Virginia, from the CHIPS bill, the infrastructure bill, the Electoral Count Act. I can go through it. Two, I can think there's nobody going to be more effective in terms of pushing back against Trump, particularly around national security and politicization of our intelligence community. And I think that is an affirmative case as well as a negative case. And I also, the issue in my rollout video had this, is like something nobody else is talking about. Artificial intelligence is going to have economic disruption that's going to blow folks away. Long term, there may be huge value coming from AI. But it's hard to make any argument that over the next 5 years, particularly for recent college graduates, that it's not going to be incredibly difficult. We already got 9% recent college graduate unemployment. I can see that going to 25%. You not only can have young people, you're going to have their parents who put 200 grand into the kids' education saying, what the hell's going on? So how do we get that transition right? I frankly think I'm already started to engage with the AI folks. They say government would screw it up. I'm saying, fine, you guys designed the transition, but you also got to help pay for it. So I think around tech issues, that's always been my sweet spot. My whole goal when I ran for governor was, you shouldn't have to leave your hometown in an interconnected world to get a good job. We've made some progress, not near enough, but I think Democrats got to have a future-leaning agenda. And again, I want to be part of that. I also realize that, as I've acknowledged, this will be my last time. I want to bring on the next generation. I've been very active with folks like our speaker in Virginia, Don Scott. We got 13 great new House members. I work my tail off to try to make sure we get all those folks hired. So part of this is also a transition to the next generation. And I think I've got an agenda that is going to I believe, not only drive in Virginia, but it's what I want to try to move the Democrats towards on a national basis, because we got to be the party of the future. We became, in many ways, the party of the status quo. And that is so anti of what I think made me a Democrat when I was young.
Now, I got to ask you, because a lot of folks in literally a month ago saw Virginia really shift to the left. Governor-elect Spanberger won by 14, 15 points. That was a pretty large margin, considering all things considered. Virginia historically has been more of a swingy state.
Yep.
Are you at all concerned heading into 2026 that voter apathy that we saw? Look, all of these voters came out. Virginia's safe. Virginia's blue. We don't need to go out and vote for Senator Warner for reelection. Are you at all concerned about that?
Yeah, I'm like, I remember 2014 when everybody thought I was going to win by 10. I won by about 1. Maybe I didn't run as good a campaign. I am not taking anything for granted. And I also think, particularly if we do redistricting, I think we're now, in light of the Supreme Court case on Texas, we're going to do, Virginians, Democrats are going to need somebody to help, particularly our new candidates for Congress, number one. Number two, we're going to have on the ballot a pro-choice amendment, a restoration of rights amendment, a gay marriage amendment. So I think that will also generate enthusiasm. But at the end of the day, planning on being the Democratic nominee, I need to kind of lead this effort and to make sure that we don't rest on our laurels. Because again, for anybody that thinks Virginia is all in blue, 2018, 2020, we kicked butt in Virginia. 2021, the Republicans swept at the statewide office level.
That's very true. Senator Warner, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.